The station floated in the darkness like a wound in space. Station Arim 7 was where ships came to die. Thousands of broken vessels drifted in the orbital jungle around it, their hulls rusted and their engines cold. Pirates, smugglers, and desperate traders called this place home. It smelled like oil and old metal and broken dreams. Taiho walked through the crowded market with his bag over his shoulder. He was 32 years old, tall and thin, with grease stains on his hands that never fully washed away. He had served 10 years as an engineer in Earth's Navy before he quit. Now he was here, at the edge of known space, looking for a ship he could call his own. The aliens watched him as he passed. A group of Kellans stood near a food stall, their blue skin shining under the station lights. They were tall and proud, with 4 arms and eyes that looked down at everyone else. The Kellans had ruled this part of the galaxy for 1,000 years. To them, humans were children who had just learned to walk among the stars. One of the Kellans pointed at Taiho and said something in his own language. The others laughed. Taiho did not understand the words, but he understood the meaning. He kept walking. He found the ship dealer in a dark corner of the station. The old man sat behind a metal desk, covered in data pads and empty bottles. His name was Kang, and he was human like Taiho. His face was lined with age and hard living. "You're looking for a ship," Kang said. It was not a question. Taiho nodded. "Something I can fix up. Something cheap." Kang laughed, but there was no joy in it. "Cheap ships are cheap for a reason, boy. They'll kill you in the black." "I know ships," Taiho said. "I can make something work if the bones are good." Kang studied him for a long moment. Then he stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the junkyard stretched into infinity. Broken ships tumbled slowly in the void. "There's one," Kang said. "A Kellan Vanguard-class cruiser. It was a warship once. Beautiful thing, back in its day. Now it's been sitting in the yard for 15 years. 3 different species tried to fix it. All of them gave up. The Kellans themselves declared it dead." "Why?" Taiho asked. "Everything," Kang said. "The reactor is cracked. The hull has holes in it. The navigation computer fried itself. The life support barely works. Every system on that ship has failed at least once." He turned to look at Taiho. "I'll sell it to you for almost nothing, because that's what it's worth. Nothing." Taiho felt his heart beat faster. "I want to see it." They took a small shuttle out to the junkyard. The cruiser floated alone, away from the other wrecks. It was massive, nearly 300 meters long. The hull was black with age and covered in scars. One of the engine pods had been torn away completely. The bridge windows were dark. Kong landed the shuttle in the hangar bay. The air inside the ship was thin and cold. Taiho turned on his flashlight and walked into the darkness. The corridors were empty and silent. Dust covered everything. Taiho ran his hand along the walls and felt the metal beneath. It was thick and strong. The Kellans built their ships to last forever. This one had been left to rot, but the skeleton was still solid. He found the engine room. The reactor sat in the center like a dead heart. Taiho walked around it slowly, looking at every pipe and wire. He saw the cracks and the damage. He also saw the design. The Kellans had overbuilt everything. They used 10 systems where 3 would work. They made the ship complicated when it could have been simple. Taiho smiled. He spent 3 hours walking through the ship. He found the bridge with its dead screens. He found the crew quarters with their broken beds. He found the weapon systems, cold and silent. And everywhere he went, he saw the same thing. A ship that had been abandoned because nobody understood how to think differently about it. The Kellans built for perfection. When something broke, they did not know how to adapt. They only knew how to replace. And when they could not replace, they gave up. Humans were different. Humans had spent their whole history fixing things that should not work. They had crossed oceans in wooden boats. They had reached the moon with computers weaker than a child's toy. They did not need perfection. They needed enough. Taeho returned to the hangar where Kang was waiting. "Well?" the old man asked. "I'll take it," Taeho said. Kang blinked. "You're serious. The bones are good. The frame will hold. Everything else I can rebuild." Kang shook his head slowly. "You're crazy, boy. But I suppose all engineers are." He held out his hand. "She's yours. Try not to die in her." They shook hands. Taeho looked up at the dark ceiling of the hangar and felt something he had not felt in years. Hope. He named the ship that night. He called it Hanya, after the women divers of his homeland. They were women who dove into cold water without fear, who took what the sea offered and made it enough. His grandmother had been one of them. The next morning, a Kellen trader named Voss came to look at the human who had bought the dead ship. Voss had 4 arms and a smile that showed too many teeth. "You bought a coffin," Voss said. "You will die in that thing, human. Your kind does not belong out here." Taeho did not answer. He just picked up his tools and walked toward his ship. He had work to do. The first month was the hardest. Taeho worked alone in the cold darkness of the ship. He wore 3 layers of clothes because the heating did not work. He ate cold food from packages because there was no power for cooking. Every night, he slept in a small tent he set up in the cargo bay, wrapped in blankets against the freezing air. But every day, he made progress. He started with the reactor. The Kellens had built it with 17 different safety systems, all connected in ways that made no sense to him. When one system failed, it broke 3 others. Taeho spent 2 weeks just understanding how it all fit together. Then he started cutting. He removed 11 of the safety systems. He kept only the ones that mattered. He patched the cracks in the reactor core with materials he bought from the station market. The Kellen way would have been to replace the whole core. Taeho's way was to make the old one work again. On the 32nd day, the reactor came back to life. The lights in the engine room flickered on. Heat began to flow through the vents. Taeho sat on the floor and laughed until tears ran down his face. That was when Yuna arrived. She came on a passenger transport from Earth, carrying 1 bag and wearing an angry expression. She was 28 years old, 5 years younger than Taeho, with short black hair and their mother's sharp eyes. She had been a pilot in the same Navy that Taeho had left. "You idiot," she said when she saw the ship. "You absolute idiot. You spent everything we had on this garbage." Taeho smiled. "Good to see you too." "I'm serious, Taeho. Mom and Dad are worried. Everyone thinks you've lost your mind." She kicked a piece of broken metal on the floor. "And looking at this place, I think they might be right. The reactor works now," Taeho said. "And the heating. And most of the lights." "Most of the lights," Yuna repeated. She shook her head. "This is insane." "Probably," Taeho agreed. "But I'm going to finish it. You can help me, or you can go home." Yuna stared at him for a long time. Then she dropped her bag on the floor and sighed. "Show me what you need me to do." They worked together after that. Yuna was not an engineer, but she was smart, and she learned fast. She helped Taeho run new wires through the ship. She helped him seal the holes in the hull. She complained every single day, but she never stopped working. In the 2nd month, a young man appeared at the ship's hangar door. His name was Do Hyun, and he was barely 20 years old. He was thin and nervous, with eyes that moved too quickly. He had run away from a Kellen mining station, where he had worked as a technician. "I saw you working on the ship," Do-hyun said. "Every night, I watch from the station. I want to help." "Why?" Taeho asked. Do-hyun looked down at his feet. "Because everyone says it's impossible." And I want to see someone prove them wrong. Taiho handed him a wrench. Welcome to the crew. With 3 people, the work went faster. Do-hyun knew electronics better than anyone Taiho had met. He rebuilt the ship's computer systems from scratch, throwing away the complicated Kellen software and replacing it with simple human programs. The systems were not as elegant, but they were reliable. Taiho focused on the engines. The Kellens had designed them for smooth, perfect flight. Taiho redesigned them for power and flexibility. He added manual controls that let the pilot override the computer at any moment. He connected backup systems to everything, so if one part failed, another would take over. Kellens don't build like this, Yuna said one day, looking at the mess of wires and switches in the cockpit. They like everything clean and automatic. That's their problem, Taiho said. When their systems fail, they don't know what to do. We build so we can always do something. In the 4th month, word reached them about Commander Relk. He was a high-ranking officer in the Kellen military, and he had heard about the human rebuilding a Kellen warship. He sent a message to Station Orim 7. The ship was Kellen property, built with Kellen technology, and humans had no right to modify it. He demanded that Taiho stop his work and surrender the vessel. Taiho read the message once. Then he deleted it and went back to work. You're going to make enemies, Yuna warned him. I already have enemies, Taiho said. Everyone who said this was impossible is my enemy. Everyone who laughed at us is my enemy. One more doesn't matter. By the 6th month, the ship was transformed. The outside still looked old and worn, but the inside was alive. The engines hummed with power. The computer systems responded instantly to every command. The weapons, which Taiho had rebuilt using parts from a dozen different ships, were ready to fire. Voss, the Kellen trader, came to the hangar to see the progress. He did not laugh this time. He stood in the doorway and stared at the ship with an expression Taiho had never seen on a Kellen face. Fear. How did you do this? Voss asked. This ship was dead. We all saw it. It was dead. Taiho wiped his hands on a rag and looked at the ship he had rebuilt with his own hands. You saw a broken machine. I saw a challenge. Voss left without another word. That night, Taiho, Yuna, and Do-hyun sat together in the ship's small common room. The lights were warm. The air was clean. The engines waited quietly for their first real test. Tomorrow, Taiho said. We fly. Yuna smiled. It was the first time she had smiled since arriving on the station. Tomorrow, we show them what humans can do. Do-hyun raised his cup of water. To the Hanya. They drank together. 3 humans alone in a galaxy that had written them off. Tomorrow would change everything. The morning of the test flight, the station was watching. Word had spread through Orim 7 that the crazy human was finally going to fly his junk ship. Traders stopped their business. Mechanics left their work. Everyone wanted to see what would happen when Taiho's dream met reality. Most of them expected an explosion. Taiho stood in the engine room, his hand on the main power switch. 6 months of work had led to this moment. Every wire he had connected, every bolt he had tightened, every problem he had solved, it all came down to now. Systems ready, Do-hyun's voice said through the speaker. He was at his station, monitoring the computer. Pilot ready, Yuna said from the cockpit. Her hands rested on the new controls Taiho had built. They felt strange but good. Taiho closed his eyes and pushed the switch. The ship woke up. Power flowed through every system at once. The lights grew brighter. The engines began to hum. The deck vibrated beneath Taiho's feet, not with the smooth perfection of a Kellen ship, but with the raw energy of something alive and hungry. All systems green, Do-hyun reported. His voice was shaking with excitement. The reactor is stable. Power distribution is working perfectly. Taiho allowed himself a small smile. He ran to the cockpit and strapped himself into the seat beside his sister. "Ready?" Yuna asked. "Born ready," Taiho said. Yuna pushed the throttle forward. The Hanyu moved. It slid out of the hangar bay and into open space. The junkyard surrounded them, thousands of dead ships floating in the darkness. But the Hanyu was not dead. The Hanyu was alive. On Station Orim 7, the watchers held their breath. Yuna tested the turning first. She pulled the ship left, then right. The Hanyu responded instantly, faster than any Kellan cruiser should move. Taiho had removed the limiters that kept the ship flying in safe, predictable patterns. Now it flew the way Yuna wanted it to fly. "This is incredible," Yuna whispered. "Taiho, this thing handles like a fighter, not a cruiser." "Push it harder," Taiho said. Yuna grinned. She was a pilot who had spent years flying by the rules. Now, there were no rules. She pushed the engines to full power. The Hanyu shot forward like an arrow. The stars stretched into lines around them. The speed pushed them back into their seats. Warning lights flashed on the console, but Taiho had programmed them to be suggestions, not commands. The ship could do more than the old Kellan systems ever allowed. "Speed is double the design maximum," Dohyun said, his voice high with disbelief. "Triple now. The hull is holding. The engines are holding. Everything is holding." Yuna laughed out loud. She spun the ship in a tight circle that would have torn a normal cruiser apart. The Hanyu bent but did not break. Taiho had reinforced the frame with salvaged materials fused in ways the Kellans had never imagined. On the station, Vosh stood at a window and watched the impossible happen. The dead ship was dancing among the stars. It moved with a grace and power that made his stomach feel cold. He had been building and selling ships for 40 years. He had never seen anything like this. The test flight lasted 2 hours. Yuna pushed the ship in every way she could imagine. She tested the weapons, the shields, the navigation systems. Everything worked. Not perfectly. There were small problems, rough edges, moments when the system struggled. But they always recovered. They always found a way. When the Hanyu finally returned to its hangar, a crowd was waiting. Humans and aliens stood together, staring at the ship with new eyes. This was not junk anymore. This was something else. A woman stepped forward from the crowd. She was human, tall and muscular, with scars on her arms and a hard look in her eyes. Her name was Nari, and she had been a soldier before she became a wanderer. "I want to join your crew," Nari said. Taeho looked at her. "Why?" "Because I've been running for 5 years," Nari said. "Running from job to job, never belonging anywhere. I watched your ship fly today. I saw what you built with your hands. I want to be part of something that matters." Taiho did not answer right away. He looked at Yuna, who nodded slightly. He looked at Dohyun, who shrugged and smiled. "Can you fight?" Taiho asked. "Better than anyone you've met," Nari said. "Then welcome to the Hanyu." That night, while the crew celebrated their success, something else was happening far away. A Kellan patrol drone had scanned the Hanyu during its test flight. The drone's sensors could not identify what it was seeing. The ship matched no known design. It flew in ways that violated every rule of Kellan engineering. The drone sent its report to Kellan Military Command. The report landed on the desk of Commander Relk. Relk read it 3 times. Then he read it again. His forehands trembled with anger. A human had taken a dead Kellan warship and transformed it into something new. Something that moved faster and turned sharper than any ship in the Kellan fleet. Something that made a mockery of 1,000 years of Kellan superiority. This could not be allowed to stand. If other species saw what a human could do with garbage, they might start to question everything. They might start to believe that the Kellans were not as superior as they claimed. Relk, sent orders to 3 of his fastest warships. Find the human vessel. Destroy it. Leave no survivors. The hunt had begun. On Station Arim 7, Taiho sat in his captain's chair and looked at the stars through the bridge window. He did not know that death was coming for him. He only knew that today he had proved something important. He had proved that the galaxy was wrong about humans, and he was just getting started. The job seemed simple. A cargo ship had crashed in the Keth Nebula, and the owner was paying good money for someone to recover what was left. The nebula was dangerous, full of radiation and sensor interference, but the Hanya needed credits for fuel and supplies. Taiho took the contract. They entered the nebula on the 3rd day of the journey. The purple and gold clouds swallowed the ship like a hungry mouth. The radiation made the sensors flicker. Communication with the outside universe became impossible. "I don't like this," Nari said. She stood at the weapons station, her eyes moving constantly between the screens. Too many places to hide. Too many ways to be trapped. "We'll be quick," Taiho said. "Find the cargo, grab what we can, and leave." They found the crashed ship after 2 hours of searching. It was a small transport, broken apart by whatever accident had brought it down. Do-hyun scanned the wreckage and confirmed that the cargo was still intact. They began the recovery operation. That was when the trap closed. 3 Kellan warships emerged from the nebula clouds. They had been waiting, hidden, their engines cold and their sensors dark. Now, they powered up all at once, surrounding the Hanya like wolves around wounded prey. Commander Relk's face appeared on the main screen. His blue skin was dark with anger. His 4 eyes burned with hatred. "Human vessel," Relk said. "You have stolen Kellan property. You have modified Kellan technology without permission. You have insulted the honor of the Kellan Empire. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick." Taiho stood from his chair and faced the screen. "We bought this ship legally. We rebuilt it with our own hands. There is nothing stolen here. You are a primitive species," Relk said. "You have no right to touch Kellan engineering. You have no right to exist among the stars. This ends today." The transmission cut off. The 3 warships began to move, closing the circle around the Hanya. Yuna's hands flew across the controls. "Taiho, we can't fight 3 Kellan warships. They have more guns, more armor, more everything. We don't have to fight them," Taiho said. "We just have to survive." He turned to Do-hyun. "Everything on manual. Cut the automated systems. I want Yuna in full control." Do-hyun nodded and began typing rapidly. The ship shuddered as the computer gave up its hold on the systems. "Nari," Taiho continued, "don't try to match their firepower. Aim for their sensors, their engines, anything that will slow them down." "Understood," Nari said. Her voice was calm. This was what she had been trained for. "Yuna," Taiho looked at his sister. "Fly like your life depends on it." "Because it does." Yuna smiled. It was a wild smile, the smile of a pilot who had just been set free. "Watch this." The first Kellan warship fired. A beam of burning light cut through space where the Hanya had been a moment before. But Yuna had already moved. She threw the ship into a spin that the Kellan's targeting systems could not follow. Their computers expected orderly flight patterns. Yuna gave them chaos. NAR, I returned fire. Her shots were precise, hitting the lead ship's sensor array. The Kellan vessel went half-blind, its targeting becoming erratic. It fired again and missed by a wide margin. The second and third ships tried to coordinate their attack. They moved together, boxing the Hanya into a smaller space. But Taiho had prepared for this. He had built the ship to survive impossible situations. "Yuna, take us into the densest part of the nebula," Taiho ordered. "That's insane," Do-hyun said. "The radiation will cook our systems." "Their systems," Taiho corrected. Not ours. Yuna understood. She pushed the Hanya toward the heart of the nebula, where the clouds were thickest and the radiation was strongest. The Kellan ships followed, but their sensors began to fail. The radiation that blinded them had less effect on the Hanya's simpler, cruder systems. Taiho had built them to work in harsh conditions. In the purple darkness of the nebula, the battle changed. The Kellans could not see. They fired wildly, hitting nothing but clouds. The Hanya moved between them like a ghost, striking and disappearing. Nari crippled the second ship's engines with a lucky shot. The vessel spun out of control, falling deeper into the nebula. Its crew would survive, but they would not fight today. Yuna led the third ship into a dense pocket of ionized gas. The Kellan pilot did not see it until too late. The gas exploded against their shields, overloading their power systems. The ship went dark. That left Commander Ralk's flagship alone. Ralk was screening orders and his crew. This was not possible. 3 warships against 1 piece of junk, and the junk was winning. His officers looked at him with something he had never seen in their eyes before. Doubt. The Hanya emerged from the clouds, directly in front of Ralk's ship. For one moment, they faced each other. The Kellan commander and the human captain. Nari fired everything they had. The shots tore through the flagship's weapon systems, its engine pods, its communication array. The great Kellan warship drifted helpless, defeated by a ship that should not exist. Ralk's face appeared on the screen one final time. He said nothing. His expression was broken, empty, the face of someone whose world had just fallen apart. Taiho ended the transmission. "Get us out of here," he said quietly. "Before reinforcements arrive." Yuna plotted a course out of the nebula. The Hanyers slipped away into the darkness, leaving 3 broken Kellan ships behind. In the common room. Hours later, the crew sat in silence. The battle was over, but none of them could quite believe what had happened. "We won," Doyun said finally. "We actually won." Nari shook her head slowly. "We survived. That's not the same thing. They'll come back. More of them. They can't let this stand." "Let them come," Yuna said. There was fire in her eyes. "We beat 3 ships today. We can beat more." Taiho looked at his crew, his family. These 3 people who had believed in him when no one else did. "They recorded that battle," he said. "Everyone in the galaxy is going to see what happened here. A junk ship defeating Kellan warships. That changes things." He was right. The footage spread across every network, every station, every planet. The galaxy watched a human rebuilt vessel do the impossible, and everything began to change. The Hanya returned to Station Arim 7 3 days after the battle. The journey was quiet. The crew rested, repaired what little damage they had taken, and tried to understand what they had done. When they arrived, the station was different. A crowd was waiting at the docking bay. Humans and aliens stood together, hundreds of them, watching as the ship landed. There was no mocking laughter this time. There were no sneers or jokes about coffins and junk. There was only silence, and then, slowly, the sound of applause. Taiho walked down the ramp and into the crowd. People reached out to touch his shoulder, to shake his hand. Faces he did not recognize looked at him with something that might have been hope. For the first time since he arrived at this station, humans stood a little taller. Vos pushed through the crowd. The Kellan trader looked older than before, as if the last few days had aged him years. He stopped in front of Taiho and said nothing for a long moment. "How?" Vos finally asked. "I have seen many things in my life. I have seen wars and miracles and disasters, but I have never seen anything like what you did." "How did you do it?" Taiho thought about the question. He thought about 6 months of work in the cold and dark. He thought about his grandmother, diving into the freezing sea without fear. He thought about every human who had ever looked at something broken and decided to make it work again. "You build for perfection," Taiho said. "When something breaks, you replace it. When you cannot replace it, you give up. We are different. We build to survive. We fix what is broken with whatever we have. We do not need perfect. We need enough." Voss stared at him. Then, slowly, he bowed his head. It was a gesture of respect that Taiho had never seen a Kellan give to a human. "I was wrong about your kind," Voss said. "The galaxy was wrong." In the days that followed, everything changed. The footage of the battle spread across the known universe. Every station, every planet, every ship, they all saw what happened. A dead vessel, rebuilt by human hands, defeating 3 Kellan warships. Messages began arriving at the Hanye. Other species wanted to hire human engineers. Merchants wanted to buy human-designed systems. Governments wanted to talk about trade agreements and alliances. The door that had been closed to humanity was suddenly opening. Kang, the old smuggler who had sold Taiho the ship, came to visit. He sat in the common room and drank tea with the crew. There was a smile on his weathered face. "I knew," Kang said. "When I sold you that ship, I knew what you might do with it. I had been watching humans for a long time. Your kind never accepts limits. You always find another way. Why didn't you fix it yourself?" Yuna asked. Kang laughed. "I am too old, too tired. But I wanted to see it happen. I wanted to see a human prove to the galaxy what we are capable of." Commander Relk did not disappear quietly. The Kellan officer survived the battle, but he returned home in disgrace. His career was over. His reputation was destroyed. The humans had humiliated him, and the Kellan Empire would not forget that he sent one final message to Taiho before he vanished from public view. It contained only 6 words. "This is not over, human." Taiho read the message and deleted it. There would be time to worry about Relk later. For now, there was work to do. A week after the battle, a new transmission arrived. It came from a colony world called Deezen, at the far edge of explored space. The message was desperate. Raiders had been attacking the colony for months. The colony's defenses were failing. They had heard about the Hanye. They were begging for help. Taiho called his crew to the bridge and played the message. They listened in silence as a woman's voice described the situation. The colony had 3,000 people. Many were children. If help did not come soon, they would all die. "What do you think?" Taiho asked when the message ended. Yuna answered first. "It's dangerous. We don't know anything about these raiders. We don't know their numbers or their weapons." "True," Taiho said. "What else?" Do-hyun spoke up. "If we help them and succeed, it proves that the battle wasn't a one-time thing. It proves that humans can defend others, not just ourselves." Nari nodded slowly. "And if we don't help, we're just survivors. Surviving isn't enough. We need to be more." Taiho looked at each of them. His sister, who had come to help even when she thought he was insane. His apprentice, who had run away from everything to be part of something new. His warrior, who wanted to stop running and start fighting for things that mattered. "We go," Taiho said. "We helped them." No one argued that the Hanye launched from Station Orim 7 that night. The station watched it go, this strange and wonderful ship that had changed everything. In the crowded bars and markets, people talked about what it meant, about what the future might hold. On the bridge, Taiho sat in his captain's chair. Yuna was at the controls. Do-hyun monitored the systems. Nari checked the weapons. They were a small crew on a rebuilt ship, heading toward danger with no guarantee of survival. But that was what humans did. They faced the impossible and found a way through. They took what others threw away and built something new. The galaxy had written off their ship as junk. The galaxy had written off their species as primitive newcomers. The galaxy had been wrong. Taiho smiled as the stars stretched around them. The Hanya jumped to hyperspace, carrying its crew toward the next adventure. The story was just beginning.